Visiting Egypt can be an exciting and enriching adventure. And we're going to give you some travel tips to hopefully make it just a little bit better on this episode of Ancient Egypt and the Bible. Okay, now we are just going to cover a hodgepodge of various different travel tips today on traveling to Egypt. And since we have a group that are going to be going there in just a few weeks, this might be helpful for them too. So, what we're going to start off with is if you've never been to Egypt, it's not like North America. It's not like Europe. It's probably not like any other country you've ever visited. It's not even like Palestine. It has its own rules and its own way of organizing itself and dealing with things. Okay? So, unless you're an Egyptologist, I would recommend that if this is your first time to Egypt, use a tour group. Use a bona fide tour group that's registered with the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism. Okay? That way, you can be assured that you're going to at least have a good probability of a positive experience when you go over there. Okay? The second thing you kind of need to have always in the back of the mind when you go to Egypt is it's not a Western democracy. Okay? It's a military dictatorship-ish that's elected every few years. Okay? So you have to kind of understand that that's sort of the rubric that Egyptians sort of live under, and have always lived under this. It's been like this since the time of the pharaohs. Except in the time of the pharaohs, it wasn't so elected. Okay? But understand that you're not always going to be dealing with Western processes. Okay? So that's sort of the basis for what you need to sort of know when you go to Egypt. Now, the first thing we're going to want to think about once you have your package and your plane tickets and all that stuff is your visa. And these visas are something that can often trip people up when dealing with Egypt. Egypt prefers that you use their website. Now, some nationalities don't need to use the website to arrange a visa. Sometimes you can just, if you're of certain nationalities, you can just go to the airport and get a visa right then and there as you enter the country. But there's some things you got to know. Okay? First of all, you go to do that, get that on site there. You're going to have American money on you because they only take American money in the visa department. They don't even take Egyptian pounds. Okay? Okay. Yeah, seriously. Not for visa. Visas have to be paid for in US dollars. Okay? So if you're in a country that doesn't regularly deal in US dollars, this can be an inconvenience. The second thing is the way you get a visa through the airport is you basically have to go to a money changer. Now, there's several money changer kiosks before you enter through immigration. But you're going to have to stand in line. You're going to have to wait. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get your visa right there. So I actually prefer using the website. Now I'm going to put the website up here for you to see. All right. And this is, yeah, I know it looks campy. Everyone has commented how campy it looks, how 1980s web development it looks. But this is the actual visa website. Now, there's a lot of scammers out there that will say they can get you visas, but this is the official site. And it's visa, the number 2, egypt.gov.eg. Okay? And it is the official visa website. Now, I'm going to say this because someone going to say to me at some point, well, I saw this website that said they'd get me an Egyptian visa, and it looked so professional. Yeah, if the website looks too professional, it's probably not the official site. It's probably a scammer. Okay? We'll talk more about scams as we get into this, because Egypt is a country of scamming. Okay? So, now with that said, we also have to point out, too, that while there's a lot of scamming that happens in Egypt, it's not a violent country. So, you're more likely to have your wallet stolen than be mugged. Okay, it's actually physically a safe country. I've gone out many times at night in Egypt and was perfectly fine. There was no problems with that. But don't leave your purse lying on a chair somewhere, or your camera unattended, because it'll go walking. It'll go walking. Okay, so keep your possessions close to you. But that's one of the things that you need to keep in mind. Now, as far as your visa is concerned, you can apply for your visa up to 3 months in advance, which is really convenient. So if you're going in a couple weeks here with the tour, you can get your visa right now. Now, the website usually takes usually around 3 days to process your visa application, but it can take up to 7 days if they're busy. So don't do it last minute, all right? And once you have your visa, it's good until you arrive within that 3-month window, and then it's good for 30 days, okay? So don't worry about getting it in advance, because it's actually really convenient, all right? Now, let's talk money. Okay, Egyptian money. Now, the official currency of Egypt is the Egyptian pound. Okay, and that is a £100 note. Okay, all right. And if that sounds like a lot of money, it isn't. That's about $10. Okay, so it's really, Egyptian money is not worth very much. But one of the things you shouldn't do is get your Egyptian pounds at the bank. Okay? Don't go to your local bank and exchange some currency here. Okay? Because there's some things about Egyptian currency that's a little bit idiosyncratic. The first thing you have to keep in mind is they change their currency often. Counterfeiting is a huge problem in Egypt. So they change their currency like every 5 years. So you might get a Egyptian pound from your bank, take it to Egypt, and they'll go, well, this note's out of date. It's worthless. So you got to be aware that money gets dated really, really quickly. So you're best not to exchange your currency in America or Europe, wherever you're coming from. Wait till you get to Egypt. Now, with that said, you should exchange your money for US dollars. US dollars. Okay? Because that's the currency they will take. Okay? So they'll take US dollars and exchange that for Egyptian pounds all day long. You know, it's almost, they'll even take that straight up sometime, but you don't want to do that, because they'll rip you off if you do that. But exchange your money here for US dollars, take that to Egypt, and exchange it with a money changer over there. You'll also get better rates too, to be honest, than you would at a local bank. Now, with that said, once you do have your Egyptian pounds, you might want to either spend it all in Egypt, or if you're going to go back, save it. But one thing you're probably not going to be able to do is take it to your local bank at home and convert it back to your local currency. In most countries, the Egyptian pound is not on the list of easily exchange currencies. Okay? So just keep that in mind when you do exchange it. Exchange it as you need it. Exchange it. The problem with the tour, though, is you're going to get only 1 or 2 opportunities to exchange it. So make sure you have enough to buy like meals, a few meals here and there, souvenirs. Just make sure you have enough on hand to just sort of grease the wheels, as it were. Pay for baksheesh, like toilet paper, that sort of thing. We'll go more into that in a moment. So that covers the money aspect. Now, luggage. If you're not aware of this, the airlines for 2025 have all agreed on a standard luggage size. That is 22 inches by 14 inches by 9 inches. If your luggage exceeds those dimensions, you will be charged a fee for checking in your luggage. And almost all the airlines are now doing this practice. So count the wheels when you measure your luggage. Make sure the luggage includes the wheels. Okay? This is, outer edge of the wheels to the outer edge of the top. Okay, for length. So
they are not going to be kind and generous.
The airlines are not going to be kind and generous and let that slide anymore. They've really sort of come down on carry-on luggage. Now, I still recommend you do carry-on luggage, but what I recommend is you pack light and pack small. So I think this is one of those things where, because here's the thing, waiting for your luggage at the Cairo airport, or even worse, the Aswan airport, it's a real pain in the neck. It's a real pain in the neck. You'll be waiting for a while. Last time I went on a tour and we flew into Aswan, it took 45 minutes to get the luggage. 45 minutes. So if you can, cut that time off your trip, you'd be that's better served. Now, there are some things about luggage that I think are really nice to have. One thing I would recommend is when you do your luggage, don't take as many clothes as you think you need, 1 per day. I would recommend washing your clothes in your hotel room and drying them there. That way, you have less luggage to carry. Keep in mind, a lot of hotels in Egypt do not have elevators. In fact, the vast majority of hotels don't have elevators. If you are on the 7th floor of a hotel building, you'll be walking up 7 flights of stairs with your luggage. Okay? So, really important that all the luggage you have is stuff you can actually carry. Now, I think there's some things that do make this a lot better. Okay? One thing I would recommend is what's called compression cubes. Okay? This is one type of compression cube. What you do is you stick your clothing in here, and it's got a zipper that goes around and compresses the clothing to make it more compact. Now, you do this with Ranger rolling your clothing, and you can get a lot of clothing in a very small piece of luggage. But you're probably not going to get 8 days worth of clothing in there. So, while Ranger rolling does help, and compression cubes do help, you are going to also need to moderate what clothing you take. For example, don't take for 4 pairs of pants. You don't need 4 pairs of pants. Okay. Women, of course, will have to be fully clothed right down to the ankle. Men can sometimes get away with shorts, but always have a pair of pants with you. Okay. But for men, you only need like 1 pair of pants. Women, again, have more to carry with them as such. But try to limit the amount of clothing you take with you. So I recommend having 4 days worth of clothing. That way, you will at some point have a stop overnight in a hotel where you can just do your laundry and hang it up to dry. Okay? So now, with that said, that covers the luggage. But there's also some nice to have that you should probably consider bringing with you, because it just makes things a lot easier. And the first thing would be, it's a money belt. Okay. This thing will hold your passports. It'll hold your credit cards. It'll hold any papers you need to take with you. The great thing about a money belt, and this one has RFID protection on it too, a lot of times when you travel to Egypt, you're going to be traveling through Europe. And this is an essential for traveling through Europe. Pickpocketing is so common in Europe. There'll be pickpockets in the airport. The money belt is your one protection against pickpocketing. So, even if it's not as big a concern in Egypt, it's going to be a concern if you travel through Europe to get to Egypt. Okay. So that's a nice to have. Yeah. Yeah. New York's not great either. I mean, I was sitting on the train in Paris, and this young 13-year-old tried to pickpocket me. And I just let him. I had nothing in my pockets. It was just like, yeah, nice try, buddy. But he wasn't fazed by that at all.
Throw the tissues away. Grab him.
He wasn't fazed by that at all. He just went on the next guy. So, these pickpocketers are very professional in the way they do it. They just, okay, I didn't get it of this guy. There's always another guy. The next thing I would recommend is, and these are Ranger rolled, compression socks. Okay? Compression socks are basically socks that sort of force the blood back up into your body from your legs. They are worthwhile to have wear on the flights because of what's sometimes called economy class disease, where people get blood clots from not moving in their seat for 15 hours. Okay. So it's also good if you're going to be doing a lot of standing, and this is a tour, you are going to be doing a lot of standing. So I recommend compression socks. They're nice to have. Other nice things to have is a flashlight, a nice LED flashlight. Okay. I have been in situations on tours where this has come super handy. Okay. We needed a flashlight at Luxor. Luxor is one of the temples that often stays open late at night. So we were in there with the tour, and nobody could get a picture of the base of the statue of Ramses II because the sun had already set. So, you have a flashlight, you turn it on, and it does its thing. We also were in a tomb that was very dark at Tanis. Flashlight, again, comes in handy. So get yourself a good, strong LED flashlight. They're not expensive these days. They're very cheap. You don't need those super expensive tactical flashlights. No. Just a regular, ordinary LED flashlight. That's all you need. Another nice to have is a compass. Okay? Now, this is a compass with a global needle. Now, a compass with a global needle is a needle that works in the equatorial regions. Okay? Not every compass works equally well. Okay? This is useful if you have to go to, say, the north side of an airport and you still don't have your new SIM card on your cell phone, so you can't tell which way is north or south. And sometimes you can have that and the GPS doesn't work correctly. So having one of these is really, really useful. Now, this one was made by Sunto. Great brand of compass. Highly recommend. Make sure you set the declension right for where you're going to be traveling to, because that's going to affect which way you're going. And this has saved my butt on a couple of occasions. I was in Germany once, and you get off the plane at that particular terminal, and it's like 1 kilometer to one terminal in one direction, 1 kilometer to another terminal in the other direction. North or south? Which is the right one? The phone wasn't going to help me here. So I had to pull this thing out, and I've actually used this on a number of occasions. Really, really useful. Even if you're not stuck in the wilderness somewhere, you know, I would get one of these. If we were going, say, further down to Abu Simbel, you definitely would need one with the, say, the global needle. Uh, some regular compasses will work at Aswan, but you're starting to get at that point where the global needle is necessary. So I highly recommend a compass, a professional compass. Don't get one of those in like a Christmas cracker, okay? They're cute, but they're not effective. But get yourself a good, proper compass. It's a nice to have. This one's kind of expensive, but that comes with the whole sort of territory of it. But again, it's good reassurance should you ever not know which direction you're going. Next thing I would recommend you get and bring with you is paracord. Paracord is wonderful stuff, okay? Now, it comes in a whole variety of kinds and colors. This one is actually kind of weird because it actually has the, you'll notice here, there's a central core with several little threads to it. Now, paracord can be taken apart. If you're in like camping, if you do camping, you can use the little threads as fishing line. The red center of this particular paracord is actually useful for kindling. So it's specifically designed, but most paracords not designed like that. But what this is useful for is as a clothesline in your hotel. Or if your belt breaks, it can improvise as a belt. Get yourself 25 feet of paracord and you're set. It's a really, really handy thing to have. I mean, you can even tie down things like your luggage with this. It's got so many uses. I've brought paracord on virtually every trip I go on now because it's just so useful. All right, now you're going to want something to sort of attach your paracord to sometimes. Now, there's a couple things you can do here. Safety pins are always helpful. You can bring a few of those. Carboners. Now, these are not the mountain climbing type. You're not going to be climbing a mountain with paracord and these carboners. No, these are the cheap kind, but they're useful. They lock in place with a screw lock there, and it makes it difficult for somebody just to walk off with something if you have one of these on there. So it's always useful to have these with you, and I have usually carry two or three with me at all times, because you can hook this onto something like a knob of a dresser or a handle of a door, or to string a clothesline or something like that. So I always bring a few carboners. They're really handy to have. Next thing is a badge holder. Okay, plastic badge holder. The type with Ziploc at the top. Okay. Now, what's this useful for? It's useful if you happen to be, if you want to take advantage of, say, the swimming facilities. Your room key. Your room key will either be a physical key, because there's still some hotels in Egypt that still do physical keys, but a lot of them are now doing like they do in the West, which is a swipe key. You can put your swipe key into one of these, and you can attach this to your swimming trunks with a safety pin or something like that, and you can have your key card on your person as you go swimming. Now, the alternative to that, if you don't do that, is to leave your key card with the concierge. That is often a really great thing, especially if you're a single woman. What I would say, though, is sometimes I was at a hotel in Abydos where the hotel rooms were right beside the pool, and the pool was gorgeous, and I did use the pool. I didn't swim in it. I used it to soak my feet. That's one thing, too. Take advantage of the pool if your feet are really sore, because it's really, really nice. Really nice. Okay? The concierge, however, was 3 flights up and almost by the street level. It was a long ways away. So unless you were really wanting to do a hike after you went swimming to get your key, this might be a better solution. Okay. Now that's sort of the little nicky-knack things that I think are basically will improve your trip. But let's talk about some other things too. Let's talk about electronics and electricity. Okay. Now, Egypt is on the 240-volt standard, and it uses a two-prong plug like this. Now, one of the things is you should get yourself some adapters, travel adapters. Now, unless you have a very special piece of equipment that doesn't do 120 and 240 volts, you don't normally need a transformer. Now, those travel transformers are very expensive. So do check your gadgets to see if you actually need a transformer. A lot of them you don't. Most, say, transformers for charging cell phones, for doing CPAP machines, those sorts of things are now all 120, 200 volt dual voltage. So in that case, all you need to do is just have the simple adapter to be able to plug in the wall, and you're usually good with that. The other thing too, cell phone cards. Okay, let's talk about cell phone cards. If you have an international travel plan at home, unless you got a really good deal on it, you're almost better off visiting a cell phone company in Egypt and just getting a card. Now, my particular phone is an unlocked phone. Now, this won't work if your phone isn't unlocked. It's one of the reasons why I have an unlocked phone. I have an unlocked phone so I can put the card from any vendor into it. I'm not tied to a specific vendor. But if you've got an unlocked phone, you're better off going to Egypt, visiting a cell phone vendor, not one at the airport, by the way. The ones at the airport will rip you off. And they're all over the place now. When I first went to Egypt in 2013, the only place you could get a cell phone card, a SIM card, was at the airport. That was the only place you could get it, and you had no choice. And they would rip you off. They'd charge you a lot more than the actual card. Nowadays, there's cell phone vendors all over the place. I mean, in 2019, when I went in 2019, I waited till I was like in Aswan to get my card. And it was just like, okay, because they were all over the place. I mean, the number of cell phone companies has just exploded in Egypt now. So every block now almost has a cell phone company where you can get a temporary SIM card. So, and those will usually be good for about 7 to 10 days. And it's not that expensive. It's about, I think I paid something like £250, equivalent of $25. So not bad. And that'll give you full cell phone service where cell phones reach, which is not everywhere in Egypt. We've got to understand that. So you might have a cell phone service in some places, but are unable to access the cellular network, say, between towns. All right, so just keep that in mind too. At that point, you almost need a satellite service at that point if you're going to try to do it between towns. And that's really not worth it unless you're in Egypt a lot. But that'll get most people through the need for cell phone. Okay. Now let's talk about cameras. I have here the camera I'm going to be taking to Egypt. It is a Z8, Nikon Z8. That's really not the point here. I do have a security chain that I made on it. Again, to prevent people from lifting it. Okay, so I got one of those carboners on here. And some chain links here. And then I got the camera cord here. Okay. Usually when say people try to steal your camera, they'll go right for around here. Because that's where it's dangling furthest from your body. So make sure if you bring an expensive camera that you do have some protection on it. The second thing here is I keep it in a Ziploc bag because Egypt is a dusty country. Okay? You'll go out and you'll go taking photographs. And let's say that one day you decide not to take photographs and you take it out the next day and it's covered in dust. Okay? So it is worthwhile to keep it in a plastic bag. Now, the other thing about cameras, bring no more than 2. Now, there are people, I understand this, people want a camera and a backup. Don't bring more than 2. The guys at customs will flip out if you bring more than 2. So just keep that in mind. Keep the number of cameras to 2 or less. Okay. The other thing about cameras that you should know about in Egypt is if you go to any museum, any tomb site, that's where you're actually going inside of an enclosed space. Cameras like a DSLR, they will charge you a photography fee. Okay? They'll charge you a photography fee. Like, for example, if you're in the Egyptian Museum, they will charge you a photography fee to take photographs with a DSLR camera. Now, they won't charge you that fee if you're just doing it with your cell phone. Okay? And they started waiving the cell phone fee in 2019, and that's because it was unenforceable. They couldn't enforce it because everyone had a cell phone now. They couldn't tell who was taking a picture and who wasn't. So they lifted that fee for cell phones in 2019, but they still haven't, as far as I know, lifted it for DSLR cameras. I hope they do. Because the images from a DSLR are just so much better than a cell phone. Okay? But keep that in mind. If you're going to bring a DSLR camera, you're probably going to have to pay extra when you get at the ticket booth for a photography pass. Okay? Now, some other things you should leave at home when you travel to Egypt. Some of this is common sense. Okay, leave your guns at home. Leave your explosives at home. Leave your drugs at home. Okay? I shouldn't even have to say that. Did not even have to say that. But leave them at home. There's some other things you should leave at home, too. Leave your two-way radios at home. Okay? They're not legal in Egypt. Okay? You'll get into a lot of trouble. Okay? Leave these at home. Yes, your ham radio is a lot of fun, and I fully agree that it's a fun hobby. Leave it at home. Okay? Leave your drones at home. Also not legal. Also, leave any bare circuit boards at home. Okay? Leave your Raspberry Pis at home. Okay? These are not technologically astute people. They will confuse this as a piece of military equipment. Leave it at home. Now, some other tips you should know about. There are a lot of scams. Let's talk about scams. Nothing is free in Egypt. Nothing is free in Egypt. Do not expect it to be free. If someone is giving you a gift, it's to scam you. Okay? They'll be, oh, you got the gift. Oh, can you help my poor cousin who's dying of cancer here? I gave you this free gift. You owe me some money for helping my cousin out. It's a scam. Don't fall for it. Don't accept anything. If they hand you something, let it fall to the ground. Another scam, the camel riding scam. Okay. Here's another scam. Some camel rider will hand you the crop to the camel. Okay. You take the crop, you now owe him money. Because you've agreed to whatever he's asking, whether it's a photograph or riding a camel, doesn't matter. Yeah, as soon as you accept the crop, you owe money. Let the crop fall to the ground. I've done this where the guy, hands me something that's just like, okay, I'm not accepting it. And I just let it fall to the ground. Yes, they get upset at that because you didn't fall for it. Oh, well. Learn the words shukran, which is thank you, and la shukran, which is no thank you. Okay? Those are very, very useful and polite ways of saying thank you and no thank you. Okay? if someone has done something legitimately for you, a thank you is nice. But don't feel pressured to give anyone money for any reason over there unless a legitimate service has been done. Now, there's these guys who go out and do baksheesh. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about the practice of baksheesh here. The practice of baksheesh is when somebody does you a tiny favor and you give them a tiny gratuity. That's the traditional practice of baksheesh. Okay? Now, I was actually thrilled once someone gave me baksheesh. I was in the Valley of the Kings, and I was in the Tomb of Tuasret, and I was reading the hieroglyphs. I was actually there studying the hieroglyphs. And this woman in a hijab came up to me and says, "You're actually reading that, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I'm an Egyptologist. I actually read this." And she goes, "Can you explain some of this to me?" She said she was from Cairo. She had never visited Valley of the Kings, and she was a physical therapist. I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, we'll go through it." So I took her through the entire tomb, and I explained everything in the tomb, and at the end of it, he gave me this 25 piastres coin. Now, this was already at the point when 25 piastres was worthless. Okay. The smallest unit of currency anyone was trading in was the £1 coin. But she says, yeah, it's not worth anything, but just thank you for doing this, and here you go. I said, look, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate it. And I still have that 25 piastres coin. I actually I'm thrilled to have it because you can't get them anymore. You can't get them anymore because they're not circulating currency. But that's the practice of baksheesh. You do a little tiny favor for someone, and they give you a little tiny gratuity. Not worth anything. But there are people out there that try to scam tourists. Okay? Like, for example, you'll see some guys hanging around like some tomb entrances or the walls of temples. And they'll point at something way up at there, and if you look up there, they'll go, "Baksheesh, baksheesh," like they did you some sort of favor when they did you nothing at all. And then they get upset that you didn't fall for it. Okay, yeah, don't feed the trolls. Don't feed the trolls. Now there is an exception to this that we should point out, which is public toilets. Okay, public toilets are privately maintained. Okay, they are not maintained by the park. They're not maintained by the government. Private individuals maintain the toilets. Those private individuals clean the toilets. They also supply you with toilet paper. This is their living. Okay. So what they do is they'll hand you usually not very much toilet paper, like 3 pieces of toilet paper. And that's the other thing. Also pack with you a roll of toilet paper and sanitary wipes. You'll thank me for that. You'll thank me for telling you to pack the roll of toilet paper. Okay? Because you'll never get enough. The other thing is you need to know too is never flush toilet paper. This is one of those things about plumbing in Egypt is it's not very good. If you flush toilet paper, it will clog the pipes. Okay? It will clog the pipes. So what they have is a little waste bin beside the toilet. You use the toilet paper and you put the toilet paper wrapped up in the waste bin. Hence, bring your own toilet paper and bring your own sanitary wipes too. It's really, you need to. You just need to. Okay? So, but after you used the facilities, these public toilets, you then are supposed to give the attendant a baksheesh. And that's usually going to be I think about, I don't know what the going rate right now was, but the last time I was there, it was about 10 pounds. These people are not living high off the hog, and this is their living. So don't get super cheap with the toilet attendants. They're doing a job, and that's what they're paid. You're supposed to pay them. Okay, you're supposed to pay them. Okay, they're not grifting you here. The guys pointing up at nothing, yeah, that's a grift. Ignore them. But the ones that do the toilet attendants, that's not a grift. That's their living. That's what they do use to feed their families. Yeah, respect them too. You treat them kindly. Treat them kindly. Okay? Okay, we're going to close out here with a couple more minor tips that I think are really important too. Luggage scale. All right, we didn't talk about this in luggage, but we should still. Buy yourself one of these. Best investment ever. Okay, this is a luggage scale. It will weigh your luggage to make sure it's not overweight. Now, if you go and you weigh your luggage and the flight crew basically still says it's too heavy, you won't win that fight. And then they're just sort of scamming you. But at least you know you're being scammed and you did everything you could to play in the rules. Okay? These are really good. They're really handy. And I bring them with me on every trip. Okay? So get yourself a good luggage scale. You won't regret it. Another thing is learn Arabic. Sorry. Learn Arabic numbers. Don't learn Arabic. You can learn Arabic. It'll take you like 5-6 years. Learn Arabic numbers. Arabic numbers are super easy. Because one of the things you're going to want to do is you're going to want to haggle. Okay? You're going to want to haggle for everything. Everything except for meals in a restaurant. You don't haggle meals in a restaurant. I've seen some people do it. It's not classy. Don't haggle meals in a restaurant. But you don't also in a restaurant too. You don't have to tip either as much. But Arabic numbers are super easy. Unlike the rest of the Arabic language, which is sort of read in the opposite direction to the way we read, their numbers are read in the exact same direction as our numbers. And they use 0 to 9, just like we do. They use their numbers in the exact same way we do in the West. All you're doing is just learning a different glyph for each number. And they're very similar. Our numbers are actually based upon Arabic numbers. So learn Arabic numbers. It's really, really easy. And there's lots of tutorials. You can learn Arabic numbers in under 10 minutes. Under 10 minutes. So I highly recommend that you learn Arabic numbers. It'll just make, when you go and you see the prices on things and you can actually see, okay, you can see what the price is. The price where it's marked, you can see it. And that's really helpful. The final I'm going to give you is actually more oriented towards, say, evangelical Christians. Okay. Now, I'm a Christian myself. I believe in spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. You have to do that really carefully in Egypt. Okay. For one thing, you cannot spread the gospel of Jesus Christ in Egypt. Okay. That's a no-no. You can't insult the Prophet Muhammad. That's a crime. That'll get you in jail. You don't want that. You don't want to spend any time of your part of your vacation or your learning trip learning how to survive in an Egyptian prison. It's not good. Not good. Okay? You do have to respect the country you're in. Now, if you do want to talk religion with a Muslim, talk Old Testament. That's fair game. I heard a conversation with a Coptic Christian talking to a Muslim, and it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating to overhear. It was all in Arabic, but I could still understand it. I knew enough Hebrew and Semitic languages that I could make out what was being said, and they were talking about prophets and kings, and they were talking about King David and the prophet Isaiah and the prophet Moses. And it was really interesting. It was really interesting that this Christian and this Muslim were having this conversation in the middle of the night around an open fire, talking Old Testament. It was fascinating. So here's the thing. You can't evangelize Jesus Christ. That's not permitted. Bad mouthing the Prophet Muhammad will get you, is illegal, and it's a crime, and you do not want that. Okay. But if you happen to encounter somebody that you do want to talk your faith with, do it in terms of the Old Testament. That's safe. It's within the cultural boundaries of Egypt, and it's still a effective method of sharing your faith with somebody else while still respecting their laws and their customs. Okay? So that's going to wrap up this video here, where we have talked about all sorts of different tips on traveling to Egypt. We hope you found this interesting and helpful. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.